Thanks for tuning in to the Replatform podcast sponsored by Ampliance and Clavio. And you're listening to the morning mumbles of me, James Gerd, and my co-host, Paul Rogers. How are you today, mate?
Good. Feels like a long time since we've done one of these together.
Yeah, it does. It feels like we're kind of doing loads in one go, then having a little break. Maybe it's just because you can't take it that much time with me. It's just too much for you.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, thanks to everybody who's a regular listener who's tuning back in. We do appreciate it. If it's your first episode, we hope you enjoy it. If you subscribe, you get new episode alerts every week. And we'd love a like on YouTube, Spotify or Apple. Makes us feel good about ourselves, but also it really does help with our rankings and ratings. So please don't forget to do that. So let me set up today's topic before I introduce our guest. So we are talking about building fast and flexible e-commerce solutions with Commerce Layer. So quite excited to be diving back into the e-commerce platform landscape today to help you understand where Commerce Layer fits in and how its proposition, which is more developer focused, is different to some of the other mainstream platforms like a Shopify or Adobe or a BigCommerce. And what we're going to cover is what is Commerce Layer? How does it differ to other e-commerce platforms? How it supports key e-commerce use cases, some of the areas it's got strengths in around building things like subscription payments, its ecosystem and its roadmap focus. So I'll stop rambling and let's introduce founder Filippo. How are you, sir?
I'm okay, thank you. And thank you, James and Paul, for having me today.
We're really excited about this because I was saying to you before we start recording, I don't know a huge amount about Commerce Layer. I've not worked on the project. I've seen it and it looks quite interesting. So I'm looking forward to learning loads as well. So before we start asking you lots of fun questions, could you give people a bit of a flavour for who you are, your background, and in your, what is Commerce Layer?
Yes, for sure. So I'm Italian. I was born in Florence and I graduated in Florence in 2004. In computer science. Soon after, I founded a small studio with a designer, and we created the typical engineer and designer small studio to build web applications and e-commerce applications. In our case, with Ruby on Rails, which is relevant to the story, to my founder story. In 2011, we both had. My partner and I both have a career opportunity, and we decided to catch this opportunity. Mine was with Gucci, the Italian luxury brand. They were looking to build an e-commerce team in the Italian headquarters to scale and to take charge of the e-commerce website that was built with Ruby on Rails. That's why it was, the language that I selected is relevant. They were looking for a Ruby on Rails expert to start working on that code base. So consider that Rails was the initial release was in 2004. So there were not many people around that had like more than 5 years of experience with Ruby on Rails. So I was hired as the first tech employee of the e-commerce team. And some months later, also Massimo Scardellato, my co-founder, joined the team, and we had the chance to work for one of the most beautiful brands in the world and to learn a lot from that experience. Then in 2014, the company decided to replatform, and we had the possibility to experience firsthand how complex, expensive, and risky a replatforming project can be, especially when you migrate, from one monolith to the other. We finally made it. The website was beautiful. It's still the website that is live today, the Gucci.com website, for sure, after many iterations, especially on the front end. But we started thinking of a different or better way of building e-commerce projects. And the idea essentially was to decouple the business logic of an e-commerce platform from any presentation or any integration, in order to allow a better customer experience and to provide more freedom to the business users to create any customer experience. So Commerce Layer was born. We founded the company in 2017, and in a few words, Commerce Layer is an API, is a commerce API that provides more than 400 endpoints and microservices and webhooks to manage all these transactional aspects of an e-commerce project. we focus. It's a very focused on the transactional component, to the point that we don't even manage the product catalog with our platform. We believe that the product catalog belongs to the content world rather than to the commerce world, and this is something that it's also a differentiator, and maybe we can expand more on this later. And and with also thanks to the experience that we had with Gucci, we designed a platform that is multi-market, that is global by design. By default, we created a model that is very easy to use, but to manage let's say international businesses with different localization rules for different markets, countries, or business models.
Great. So that leads me on to my first question, I guess. So beyond the international side, what was the gap in the market that you saw that led to you introducing commerce layer?
Yeah, I'd say even before the international support is really the need of a better and more flexible customer experience in many channels. If you again compare to the monolithic approach, where the same platform, the same code base handles the front end and the back end and all the, let's say, the components and functions of your e-commerce website, an API first approach allows you, the business users and the marketing team, really to create an outstanding customer experience starting from a blank page, because the API is really decoupled and allows you to build and to design whatever you want. So the customer experience was for sure one of the biggest drivers. The other one is performance, because also making the monolithic platforms fast is again very expensive, and there is a lot of effort needed to maintain and to scale those platforms. So by separating the front end from the back end in a headless approach, you really want to make your you really are able to create and to maintain a more lightweight front end, which is it's faster and more scalable. And then the international capabilities that we just mentioned.
So you mentioned earlier about in your background, like building tech on Ruby on Rails, and so where did you get to in Commerce? What is the tech stack? What is it built on? What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so it's the core is still built with Ruby. We have many microservices that use different technologies, but when I started building and developing Commerce Layer, the core API, what we call the core API, is it was and it is built with Ruby, and so it's all proprietary. I started coding the platform from scratch, like without using any open source. Yeah, for sure, open source libraries or gems, as we call it in the Ruby on Rails, in the Ruby ecosystem. But so we didn't use any, let's say, platform or adapt any platform. Instead, we created and we designed it really from scratch, from a blank page. And then, our infrastructure is all cloud. We run on AWS and Fastly. Then we use Elasticsearch for some functionality, and we have also some NoSQL databases to handle some events and so on. So it's it started as a Ruby code base, and it is expanding into a stack with different components and also different technologies on the front end, because it is true we are an API first, but not API only. We are evolving our product also to provide micro front ends or applications that our developers and customers can use to accelerate the time to market. We released a hosted checkout application, which is built with React, and this application is open source, so developers can use it in a hosted way. So you can really use it, and just connect it to your website or channel, or you can fork it on GitHub and customize it to your needs, or you can just take it as a reference and build your own. So starting from the bottom up, API, the SDKs, and then micro front ends, and we also have backend applications that are built with React and allow the business users to interact with the orders and there's business configuration and so on.
What I find interesting is when you look at the way that different platforms promote and market themselves on their websites and in their marketing. A lot of, if you take the likes of like BigCommerce, Shopify, they're very much geared towards the business user and the e-commerce team. Yours is different because your USP is composable. Can't even say it today. Composable commerce API for developers. So why have you specifically focused into that more technical audience?
Because we believe that by empowering developers, we empower the business users to scale their business and to essentially build what they need. I was that developer, at Gucci, and having the so-called top-down approach, I don't think it works well when it comes to the actual implementation, or not necessarily well. Because developers, a happy developer is really a great resource for the business and for the organization, whether he or she is a developer within the company or from the agency. But I really believe in the power of a happy developer. So this developer-first approach and also developer-first go-to-market allows us to speak to developers, CTOs first, to get them try and get convinced about our technology and our platform, and then we do the next step, which is to convince their decision makers. Actually, they are becoming more and more part of the decision making process. That's also what we see, that is evolving. And so, it's maybe a longer term game, but we really believe this is the direction to go. So that's why we are following this approach.
That makes sense. And I guess whenever I've heard people talk about commerce layer, like whenever I've spoke to some of your developer partners or merchants that have brought it up, I've always heard commerce tools in the same sentence. And I imagine, you have this question every day, but I guess commerce tools has gone out to market in a very similar way. They're kind of developer first, or CTO led, I'd imagine. What differentiates, like how do the two platforms differ, and how does your proposition differ to that of commerce tools?
Yeah, so it is true. Commerce tools is we consider commerce tools as our competitor, and there are a lot of similarities on the approach. We highly respect what they do, and the fact that they created a headless approach even before we were born. I think they started the company in 2006, so like more than 15 years ago, and they have been really precursors of this movement. We are also becoming part of the same Mac Alliance, so we really believe that we are working, on the same approach. But there are differences, and the differences that we can highlight are: one is our focus on the transactional engine. So the fact that we don't manage the catalog, we don't provide the PIM or a search, capabilities from our platform, is something that is, I think, unique. And again, compared to not just commerce tools, but also other e-commerce platforms. But we believe that product content, the product catalog, is brand content and should belong to the content management system, not to the e-commerce platform. So commerce tools provides a catalog, and this catalog management and the transactional engine is not as decoupled, or can't be decoupled with the same in the same way that you can do with commerce layer and a catalog management system, because we simply don't have it. It is not decoupled at all. So this is a simple yet powerful differentiator that our customers consider really refreshing to use, and to quote some of their words. And it's one. The second one is we were born and we built our platform in a different era, and where the development is we're moving more and more to the client side. So we created an API that is I would say, more client-side friendly or client-side ready. To give you an example, even if we are going maybe too much into the details, but we have some APIs that is the sales channel API, the API that you use to build the sales channel that is can be used on the client side. It doesn't require a secret, a client secret. So the security is handled at the application level. Again, without going into much details, the point is that you can embed and you can integrate Commerce Layer directly from JavaScript to Commerce Layer on the client side without any security problems. Instead, if you work with commerce tools, or if you work with Shopify Storefront API, other platforms that are more server side, let's say, you always need some backend for front end. This is something that, for example, prevents you to push what we are doing, like to promote the micro front ends approach. With Commerce Layer, we are providing web components, really standard web components that can be injected and embedded into a web page. And our JavaScript library can fetch a price, can fetch an availability message, an add to back button, a cart from Commerce Layer directly, just with a copy and paste. This is not necessarily the first. The way developers want to work. But for example, during the POC phase, and this is very often when we win deals, when Commerce Tools is also involved. It's during the POC phase. During the POC phase, by giving developers and agencies this ready-to-use web components and micro front ends, really allows them to build the POC in a week, and so they can try and they can have a taste of what it looks like to work with Commerce Layer. It's about the time to market and the simplicity of working with Commerce Layer. And I also believe that our international capabilities. So our multi-market model is unique, not just compared to Commerce Tools, but also to others. So we really designed our API to be multi-market from day one. And this makes a difference when it comes to localize your business for different markets, because everything in Commerce Layer can be defined by market. And the market is also a notion that is not necessarily linked to a regional segmentation. The market can be B2C or B2B, it can be a customer group. We gave this resource the name market just because we had to give it a name. But as you know, naming things is one of the most complex things to do. But yeah, it's not a regional only concept. It's really a resource that allows you to be very, very flexible when it comes to localize your business model for different needs.
Great. And my next question is around pricing. So James has kind of added some numbers here. So I don't know how the pricing works, or some kind of information. And it sounds like your kind of standardized pricing is based around a combination of orders per month, the catalog, or the size of the catalog, number of SKUs, and then the market. But then that varies for the custom enterprise packages. So can you just talk us through how you would typically calculate pricing for bigger businesses and kind of how that scales for higher volume merchants?
Yeah. So first, looking at the volume and the pricing, we offer volume discounts. So if you are a larger business, so our enterprise clients generally always get a volume discount based on their sales volume. We don't go in revenue share. This is something that is, I believe, it's appealing to the larger enterprise versus the smaller startups. This means that by having ultimately a fixed price per order that can be 50 cents or 10 cents depending on the order, it can make Commerce Layer more affordable to brands that have an higher average order value rather than a lower average order value. Now, there are two, if we look also at our users and our customers, Brioni, that they have a very high average order value. So the cost of Commerce Layer is really tiny compared to what others can offer. if you have like taking another example, or Chili's or Sum Up, they have a lower average order value. Their products are around $50 or euros, and in that case, the volume is so big that they can leverage a volume discount that makes the price work very well. I would say that brands that have very low volume and very low average order value are not necessarily, are not necessarily the best brands for us. But either you have you sell premium products, or have larger volumes, our pricing works very well. And if you're selling big premium products and you have larger volumes, so it really becomes very, very aggressive in terms of pricing.
What is Amplience? In a word, it's freedom. The freedom to build a digital experience as limitless as your vision. Create, preview, schedule, and manage all your content in one easy place. Find out more at amplience.com. Amplience. Experience freedom.
I've got a question around the type of business actually that is like, is the sweet spot for commerce makers. I've seen all sorts of projects from Commerce Tools, Elastic Path, Shopify, BigCommerce. And when I've seen people go down the route of these more customizable platforms where they have greater development control, the businesses typically need greater engineering and development resources themselves for the life cycle of it, rather than just an agency doing it. Is that the case with Commerce Layer, or do you have clients who use the platform but don't have their own engineering and development teams?
A customer of Commerce Layer either has a developer team, an engineering team in-house, or some developer in-house. It doesn't necessarily need to be a big team. It can be also one developer, one tech-savvy developer, or tech lead, or they work with an agency. So you, as a business, you can't take Commerce Layer and build your solution without involving an agency or an in-house development. Let's say when it works very well is when there are both, brands that hire an agency and also have at least one person in-house, let's say, that can interact with this agency. And he or she doesn't need to be necessarily a developer, but someone who understands technology and understand and can talk to an agency, and then the agency can do the business for them. So I would say that also this is another reason why we target developers, we target CTOs, we target tech people, because there is always some tech guy involved in the conversation and the project when Commerce Layer is part of the stack.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, another linked question for me is, so in a lot of projects, although the CTO or the senior IT lead would be a key influencer in the final decision, because they have to vet and make sure the technology fits within the overall enterprise architecture, a lot of the time the decision maker who signs off with a vendor and an agency is the e-com director or digital director. So as your go-to-market is primarily you're going into like the CTO and the developer community, what type of barriers do you come up against often in the business side, like the e-commerce directors? What sort of objections do you have to try and counter? Because they have obviously different viewpoints on technology. Yeah.
First, I sometimes say that we are a B2B2C company, because we need to sell our technology to the tech team, and when we get the tech yes, then we need to sell it to the decision maker that is not necessarily the CTO. So to your question, it is about letting the business users understand the value of a composable approach. And also some of the main challenges that we get is to let them understand that the composable approach is not necessarily as expensive or as complex as you might think. So if you are running your business on a monolithic platform and are looking to migrate to a composable stack, this can be complex if you do that in one step. So if you do, again, you want to do a replatforming and you want to select 3 or 4 components, the commerce engine, the CMS, the search engine, the delivery network. You have to choose the front end layer or build the front end layer and integrate all these components together. So again, if you do it in one shot, there are a lot of decisions to be made, and it can be scary. What we recommend is to go progressively. So let's look at your current situation, identify what's the primary pain that you need to fix. And if this pain is to improve your content management, let's start and introduce a headless CMS into your stack so that you can improve your, the experience from a content perspective. If your pain point is the transactional engine because you're locked by, let's say, your international capabilities, the possibility to choose different payment gateways, optimize the cost, and so on. The cost factor, especially in these market conditions, is becoming really important, more important than ever, I would say. And with a composable approach, I actually believe that the cost can be reduced because you can select only the components that you need, and that don't necessarily need to be the best in class. If you choose the best in class of each component without looking at your actual needs, so the total cost of ownership can become large. But if you look at your needs, and maybe you don't necessarily need all the best in class for all the components, you can also opt for different solutions, either buy or build different solutions and compose a stack that fits your needs. So also from a cost perspective, if you proceed progressively, you reduce the risk. It's not a big replatforming. Is the start. Is the start of a journey that you iterate, you experiment, and you invest in those components that bring you more value. So it's not the cost; it's more an investment.
Great. And then my next question. So I guess over the years, I've not over the years, maybe the last couple of years, I've associated you with, Chili's. And then I realized you did the Sun God site, which is also a really good site. But then I recently heard that you run Rapha, which is obviously a huge, online business far beyond just e-com, with all their loyalty stuff and everything else and the events, etc. So can you talk us through why Rapha chose Commerce Layer, and maybe just talk us through that project a little bit and kind of how it's going to work?
Yeah, first we are very proud of partnering with Rapha. It's an amazing brand, and they're a true omnichannel brand. They will use Commerce Layer in a way that could unlock different business models, with their community of customers, which is amazing. And we are happy to also to be challenged by Rapha, to improve the flexibility of our platform. I would say that there are a few reasons why they selected Commerce Layer versus other of our competitors. One is, the flexibility that we provide, but also how open we are. They developers and also the internal engineering team, the CTO, they wanted to try the different platform. They tried Commerce Layer and they were convinced by the product in the first place. They were convinced by the flexibility of the API, by the stability, by the speed of our API, by using it, not by talking to someone, really by using with and trying the API. And then again, the CEO trusted their team, which is something that we see more and more. The CEO trusted the decision made by their team. They did a very deep assessment, and so this as we were saying, it's a very significant case study. It will be a very significant case study for us, but also now the decision-making process is really how we want to win customers like Rapha. Again, speaking to the CTO, to the tech team, we want our product to be our best sales and marketing asset. We want them to try and not to listen to us. And then when they have tried the product, eventually they will be so in love with what they see that they will also convince the decision makers. I want to quote what the CTO of Rafa said, that specifically about our focus on the transactional engine. I asked him, what do you think about our transactional focus? Do you think there is are we missing something? Do you miss the catalog from our platform or not? And he just replied, oh no, it's refreshing. That's what he said. And I think this refreshing means that you can really get the flexibility you need as a CTO, as a tech lead, to empower your business with the requirements that they have and will have in the future, and that will change with a high frequency.
A key question I've got actually is because I know that the Mac Alliance is growing a lot, and the talk of composable and headless is everywhere, but still working on the ground with e-commerce teams. For most e-commerce teams who aren't like large enterprise with big engineering teams themselves, the thought of composable feels very abstract. It's like, I don't really get, what is it? I can do anything, but that's quite, doing anything can be quite paralyzing for people when they're used to working in very specific ways. And I know that you said you're building out the capability, the functionality, and speeding up time to market. And you recently added a demo store. So I'd love to hear about what is the demo store? What does it provide out the box, and how does it like accelerate project builds?
First, allow me to elaborate on the composable commerce concept. I believe that the composable commerce concept is not a new concept at all. If you remember in the early 2000s, when brands started using e-commerce platforms to build an e-commerce website, and then at some point, many of them realized that they needed a better content management systems. So they introduced WordPress, for example, as a CMS. And so we were, looking at the marketing website and the shop website, the two websites. This was the very first rough version of the composability. And then for sure, now we are doing much better instead of having two different experiences. So composable is really not a new thing. And now it's about the tools that you have to build a composable stack. And the Mac Alliance is helping a lot in educating the market and also providing an ecosystem of vendors that are certified as API first and Mac components of this stack. To your question, the demo store is one of the developer tools that we provide to understand how Commerce Layer can work. It is an open source Next.js website that is using a static content catalog that is technically a JSON, a big JSON file using an open source library for search. So it's only powered by Commerce Layer and some custom coding and some custom data. The fact that the content is not provided by the CMS demonstrates that you can actually integrate any CMS. The only thing that you have to do to make that demo store work is to produce the very same JSON file with any CMS that you want to use. The fact that you can have a nice search experience with just an open source library means that you don't necessarily need, maybe from day one, the best-in-class search engine to power your search experience. So it is meant to, again, to let agencies and developers build POCs with their content data, allows our sales team to demonstrate maybe to business users the capabilities of Commerce Layer, because sometimes it's difficult to visualize if you're not a developer to just look at the CLI or JSON objects and connect that to the actual experience. So this is a way to simplify also the visualization of what Commerce Layer can do. But yeah, just that. Some smaller brands might think to use that demo store as a starting point. But in general, to build the actual experience. But the promise of headless and I think it's that you want to create a custom front end in general. So it's great to have a reference. It's great to have a starting point. And it's in some cases, especially for the smaller brands, it can make sense to actually use that demo store as a starting point, as a starter. But yeah, in general, the larger brands want to create a custom experience and use that as a reference for their developers.
And I know earlier you said that you don't, in your platform, you don't have the product catalog in the same concept that you have in a lot of other platforms, and that you believe that product catalog management is through content, which I understand that, because then you can control it exactly how you want. But I think most people are used to a standard integration is like an ERP or a PIM into Ecommerce, and there's your product catalog. So where does Commerce Layer fit in that? So product data from a source system like a PIM or an ERP, where does that come into? How does it get pushed into a CMS? What's that flow?
The SKU prices and stock come from the ERP into Commerce Layer. So Commerce Layer is all about, again, SKUs, different prices for different price lists, different stock and this different availability for different stock locations and markets and so on. So the integration flows from the ERP into Commerce Layer. We also provide an import API, which is asynchronous. It's a batch import API. So you can import your data with the frequency that you need into Commerce Layer. But the only product information that you need in Commerce Layer is the SKU code, just the SKU code. Just one code that is used to link your content with your commerce, let's say. So if you have a PIM, you will import the product content into the CMS. And we have some content models for the most popular CMSs. Our partner CMSs like Contentful, like Content Stack, Storyblock, or Sanity. And with these content models, you can easily model a product catalog into the CMS and make it very flexible, the same way you make a flexible content model for other parts of your experience. And so, yeah, if you have a PIM, you may want to import our product content into the CMS for product enrichment, because maybe you want to import some data from your PIM, but then you want to enrich your storytelling and enrich your product content, or just model the different product pages for different type of products, because depending on the product type, you can have different needs. So instead of having like the same product page for all the type of products, you may want to model a different product content to support different product page and product page experiences.
Great. So another question that I'd imagine you probably get asked quite a lot, that I think is quite an interesting one. So with the SaaS platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce, and even some of the other platforms on the market, I feel like one of the main kind of selling points is the ecosystem around the platform that allows them to kind of, release new features or introduce new functionality or, optimize whatever very quickly and at a low cost. Is this something that you're building into your strategy? Do you plan to kind of build out a tech partner ecosystem and kind of pre-existing integrations?
We do. We already have some key integrations with the payment gateways, for example, like Stripe, Adyen, Checkout.com, Klarna, PayPal, and others, which is pre-built into Commerce Layer, or with the shipping carriers like DHL, FedEx, UPS, USPS, and so on. We have pre-built integrations with this kind of providers. Also, from a tax calculation perspective, we integrate with TaxJar and Avalara, so you can decide to automate your tax calculations with one of these tools. And in general, we also we are building other integrations. I don't believe in the app let's say, in the App Store mechanism that you get from, at least for our type of, for our target customers, like the App Store, the Shopify App Store, for example. If you are a business and if you use Shopify, there is a good chance that you're using, 10 to 15 different apps from 10, 15 different vendors. So you think you are working with Shopify, but actually you have 15 different teams or maybe solopreneurs that are handling one of the key features of your infrastructure, the apps. And so you have 10 to 15 different support, let's say, teams, or you really need to, because the apps are not hosted on Shopify, they are hosted by the app provider themselves. Instead, we are natively built to integrate and to build integrations. We have an application mechanism. You can build apps on Commerce Layer, but we like to first we build applications ourselves so that you can get some ready-to-use integrations, and with the same mechanism, with the same system, we enable the partner to build applications for the client. So, for example, if you think of a brand that works with an agency and Commerce Layer, the partner can build some custom apps for the brand, and so the brand will have the partner and Commerce Layer as a single point of contact to, and also the responsibility of that is really restricted to us and to the partner, instead of being fragmented across multiple developers that want to build apps on top of the platform. So again, I believe in the same technology, but not on the App Store that, for the reason that I just explained.
No, I do get that. I think, it's an interesting one. I guess I've always been quite pro the idea of like reducing the amount of development hours that need to go into certain things so you can reinvest that time and money in other areas. But I think you're right. It's kind of like there's probably a bit of a happy medium. So the next and final question is always an interesting one. What's on your roadmap? Like, what are you kind of investing in next year? Like, what are some of the cool things you're doing? What are your customers asking for?
We are going all in with our micro frontends approach. Again, the evolution of our product started from the API, SDKs, React components, and our micro frontends. So we are keeping building and productizing our micro frontends that allow the brands and agencies, to reduce the friction. To reduce the friction of adopting Commerce Layer and the composable stack in general, or just to make the POC phase even faster and easier. To create a fully functional production-ready POC, so that you can try and experiment a composable platform powered by Commerce Layer. So again, reducing the friction and make it easier to adopt a composable stack is our biggest priority now. In terms of features, we are and what customers are asking, they are asking for more insights about the data that we handle, and so we are about to release a new API, which we will call the Metrics API. And this Metrics API will be, again, a completely different microservice and API to inspect your transactional data and get insights about your business. Or if you are working with a third-party BI tool, you can get this data and bring this data in a very fast and flexible way, and query this data and bring this into another tool that you want to use for your business intelligence needs. So these two things, again, reduce the friction and providing a new, more value from the data that we own that start to be quite huge.
Excellent. Really enjoy that. Thanks. It's given me a bit more of a flavour for where you sit and your differentiation. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on, Filippo.
Thank you. Thank you again. It's been a great pleasure.
And as with all these episodes, we always ask if people have got more questions, if they want to challenge you on anything or they want to probe into any more detail on what you said, how do they reach out and connect?
You can use our website at commercelayer.io. You can happy to connect on LinkedIn. You can find me, Filippo Conforti, on LinkedIn, or just send me an email, filippo@commercelayer.io, and I'll be happy to answer it and to be challenged, by someone who has different opinions.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the e-commerce audience. There's not always different opinions around technology, platforms, integrations. It's half the fun of it, and always something new to learn. So I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for listening. Always hope that's been interesting. You've learned something new today. Keep an ear out for the next episode. We drop one every Tuesday. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a rating on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Until next week, everybody. For more information on this topic, head over to replatform.fm for our audio podcasts. To discuss a project, or if you'd like to chat about any of the topics covered in this episode in more detail, please reach out to myself, James Gurd, or my co-host Paul Rogers via LinkedIn and Twitter. Thanks again for listening, and keep your ears peeled for the next episode.